and turn the meeting over to our zoning administrator, Joey Hargis.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Metropolitan Board of Zoning Appeals is now in session for its regularly scheduled meeting of November 4, 2021. I'm Joey Hargis, Metro Zoning Administrator, and I'll be presenting the cases for review in today's public hearing. The board asks, if you don't mind, if you'll turn your cell phones to silent or vibrate, so that way they don't go off in the middle of the hearing. We would appreciate it. The procedure will be to go through each case on the record as the Codes Administration has it. We'll do that on the wall here by means of a PowerPoint presentation. I'll present any photographs, slides, sketches that have been submitted, as well as any letters that we've received from Metro agencies or council members. At the end of my presentation, the appellant will come forward first to the table. There are microphones there in front of you. If you'll press the button on the right-hand side of the microphone one time only, you'll notice that the microphone will have a red ring around it, like that. And your microphone is hot, and go ahead and provide your testimony. The board allows in its rules cases with opposition that both sides of the case, both the applicant and the opposition, have 10 minutes to present their case to the board. The time I'll keep here at the desk, and I'll make you aware at 5 minutes, and then at 3 minutes, that in 1 minute that your time is remaining. Again, that 10 minutes is per group or per side, not per person. So if you have multiple speakers, y'all divide your time accordingly before we come up. All cases set for public hearing today on our agenda have been advertised. Notices were sent to the appellants and adjoining property owners by first-class mail. The board's empowered to act on the cases before us as outlined in Section 1740-180 of the Metro Code of Law. The code requires that 4 members of this 7-member board be present to constitute a quorum. Today we've got 5 members present. You also need 4 affirmative votes of these 5 members, so 6, excuse me, missed one. My plus now. Yeah, there we are. Yeah, sorry, sitting here looking at the back of Mr. Cole's head. He is number 6. My apologies. Joseph, if you'll forgive me, Tuesday I'm having eye surgery, so I'll actually be able to see out of my left eye going forward. So you're kind of in my blind spot there a little bit. So you need 4 votes of the 6 members present for an approval of your case. If you fail to receive 4 affirmative votes today, if the vote goes 3-3, that case will stay on our agenda for the next 30 days. And these 6 members have the ability to change their vote. The 7th member, Ms. Carpenex, who's not present today, can watch the proceedings on YouTube, Metro 3, and then become eligible at the next meeting on that. But, Mr. Chairman, that's the cases I have. I do have one preliminary announcement today before we get into consent agenda. Staff has received an email from the appellant on case 2021-135, Smith G Studios. Is the appellant. St. Joseph Properties, the owner, located at 1308 Dickerson Pike. Mr. Chairman, I know there is opposition present here today. Legal counsel and I were looking through the board's rules and didn't find an exact situation on point, but historically this board has allowed for deferrals through our office administratively a few days before the hearing, not generally getting an email prior to today's hearing. We've generally, as a historical process, if you wanted a deferral on the day of the hearing, you needed to come here and request it in front of this board. So I kind of passed to you on this first case whether we should, A, permit the appellant's email for deferral 1 meeting to stand, and we would move this case to November the 18th, or either let staff withdraw the case and let him refile and come to a hearing, whenever he files, and he'll come back to this board at that time. Or if the board wished to take action on the case, under your rules, if you do deny a request, applicants have to wait 6 months to come back to this board. You could, in talking with legal counsel, you could amend those rules to provide a sooner refiling. So kind of our 3 options in that case. So members of the board and Mr. Chairman, I kind of turn over to you for direction on how the board would like to proceed.
Okay. Do we want to, I think it's on, I'm just not talking, sorry. How about, having given that information, let's have maybe a few minutes for the board to process their thoughts, do the consent agenda, and then let's just call the first case and address it as when the first case is called. And then just given that information, we have the information from the applicant. And then that'll give folks maybe a minute or two to think about which of those three options they prefer the board to do.
Mr. Chairman, can we see how many people here are in opposition, actually?
Well, I was just gonna do that when we, like,
Okay.
after the consent agenda, it'll be the first one on the list, and then we can just get the whole lay of the land and decide what we want to do, if that's okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, with that, the board will go through the cases recommended for consent agenda. And if you're here for the cases I call, and you're here only in opposition to the case that I call, raise your hand, please. The first case recommended and reviewed by Chairman Taylor for the consent agenda is case 2021-142. Mr. Eddie Linville is the owner, is the appellant, Stephen and Jessica Banstra, owners of the property at 6024 Jocelyn Hollow Road, requesting a variance in street setbacks in the RS40 constructed addition. We did receive a letter from Councilman Druffel in support. Are there any parties opposed to case 142 who are present? Mr. Chairman, I see none. That is the only case that is
All right,
on our consent
we have a
agenda.
motion for the consent agenda. Is there a second? I have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed? That motion passes.
Okay, if you're here for case 142, you've been approved. Just follow up with the Codes Department beginning on Monday to continue processing your permit. You're free to go. All right. Mr. Chairman, with that, we've dispensed with the consent agenda. Now we move back to case 2021-135, 1308 Dickerson Pike.
All right, so on this one, as we, the zoning administrator said he received an email just minutes before we started, asking for a deferral, and I don't believe there wasn't a specific reason that I was told. Is there a specific reason? Not yet. Okay. All right, so that's the communication. And so Joey is right that this is, I don't recall a case where, it's not unusual that we have people come back and say, we didn't have time to meet, or we met and we still need more time. But I would be inclined to hear from the council member who we'd asked to coordinate if you would like to speak, and then really look at the three options, which are the applicant's request for a deferral, the allowing the zoning administrator to withdraw the case, or us taking action on the case, however we choose. But so if that's acceptable, Councilman Parker, would you like to address the board?
Yes. This is Councilmember Sean Parker. So it's my understanding that the applicants are sort of looking to sort of revise their approach to this development. I'm not sure the extent of that. Where we last left it, it was kind of, well, we'll find time to talk again in the future. My only request, I think it's kind of at the board's discretion what you do with this item that's before you today. If the next board meeting is indeed on the 18th of November, that is a very big day. At Planning Commission, we have redistricting and a major project in my district, so I would ask that whatever you do, you don't put it on that day just in order to allow me and the community to focus on the redistricting that might be considered on the 18th and the other very large project we have that day up for consideration. So.
Would it be more advantageous to the process in the neighborhood to either have the case withdrawn or, we could deny the case and then they would refile? Yes, as Joey said, we could if the board chose, we could deny the case and say, you can reapply within a month, which would then trigger community meeting and noticing and all of that again. Would that be a preferable, either one of those two options, either withdrawal and refiling or us denying and allowing them to,
That would
file
be
within
a reduction from, what is it, like a 6-month wait?
Yeah, normally if we said no to anyone at this board, if we denied it, then they would have to wait 6 months to refile for that same, the same case. And so in this case, that, and again, I can only speak for myself, not the board, but that felt a little severe. And so to me, the most important part of that was to go through and again, the board may feel differently, but to me, the most important part was to go through the process again of noticing community meetings and as we said at the last meeting to the applicant, much greater clarity in what you're really trying to do.
Sure.
And so that was, I thought, the goal, and obviously we don't have any progress from the applicant here today because they've asked to defer.
I think that would be sensible to have at least another noticed meeting if they are to reapply and go the BZA route on this one. So I think that would be sensible, and as I understand, the appellant is willing to kind of take another stab at this and maybe change the approach a little bit. So I think that would be appropriate, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I add a potential solution as well? This board in recent years has had an indefinite deferral. I've, as a practice as zoning administrator, trying to get away from that. But if it's a chance that we can postpone this, but I as zoning administrator require them to renotice before they come back. So it's at least December 2 before they could get back here in time to meet the notice requirements. But just let the applicant pick his comeback time, and I'll say, okay, just renotice it. So that way there's at least a notice in the community.
Right, yeah, and I'd like a notice and a community meeting and all that too. So, are there any questions for the council member?
Well, if I could, I appreciate you showing up today. Don't appreciate the negative, less than no time for you guys being advised of it. But I would assume, and it's more, wouldn't this be better after the holidays? Like, give everybody a chance and have everybody come back. And I'm sort of tossing this out for some of my other members up here, as well as you. I know that during the season, whichever one you're into, your time's pretty packed, and so are the folks that show up. So I'm hoping, maybe 60 days or something like that. Let's get us into.
Okay.
I mean, and I know that's not directed to you because you want to get it done too, but still, you've got a busy season, and you're trying to do redistricting. Good God.
Sure, yes. I mean, there is a lot sort of on the plate aside from the regular difficulties of the holiday schedule. So, if the board finds that to be appropriate, I would welcome that.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts? Did you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
Okay. Then I will, we never really have a public hearing since the council members are allowed to speak, but we will close that discussion and decide as a board what to do. I'm a little torn. I mean, there's a good, I just haven't had that situation with the little notice, especially since it was a contentious case that we gave a month to do the planning for, and it's such little notice. So I leaned a little bit toward either withdrawing and having it refiled or denying it and allowing them to reapply, which would put it into either case. I think would put it into January. And I don't have a real strong preference, one way or the other. If we do defer it indefinitely, allowing them to come back at what point we choose, maybe the first or second meeting of January, then I do think that an important component of that is renoticing and a community meeting, because that's why we deferred it in the first place, is the lack of community engagement. And so, anybody have a strong thought one way or the other?
I guess I'm sort of where you are, like, I always feel bad when people show up and the other person doesn't, and because they're the applicant, they sort of they're in control of their case, like, this is their case, and they're in control of it, and based off the letters we received in the last meeting, I think they had some awareness that people would show, so just sort of, I like to respect people's time, both sides' time, so I think whichever option that the board feels inclined to, I agree with. I think it's perfectly acceptable to deny it and have them renotice it and start all over, because it sounds like there's a lot to work out and we didn't have a lot of clarity the first time, or that sort of longer period and have them come back in the new year. So I'm sort of where you are.
And Joey, is that, if we were to deny this and allow them to refile in a month, would that give them opportunity for the January meeting, or what time frame would allow them, or actually push it to the kind of the first meeting in January?
I think in either case, both a withdrawal or a denial and in the motion allow them to refile at the next available cycle will both get you to January.
Okay. And then, I guess from our legal counsel, was there a preference from your perspective of which is cleaner for the record, a withdrawal from the zoning administrator or from a denial from the board?
No, I didn't have a preference. I think you guys have made it clear and communicated clearly what you're doing, so I think it's fine.
Okay. Then I will make a motion then, I'm sorry,
Can I
Tom.
just, I mean, the one thing, and again, I know that I mentioned the holiday seasons, and if they're going to have their public meetings and what have you, you know, other people try to plan things around the season, and trying to get them in right at the very, very start of January means they may have their public meeting and nobody shows because everybody's either at holiday parties or whatever, or they're driving off to visit grandma or grandpa somewhere else, and since I'm a grandpa, I can say that. I mean, we've got people here.
Okay.
That've been here before. I'd kind of like to kick it out a little bit farther, no sooner than the second meeting in January at the very, very best. But the timing of the public meetings has got to be important. And again, we've got a councilman who's going to be real busy over the next little bit. And I'm not bending over and just saying, you know, here, kick me or anything like that. But, you know, if he's crazy enough to be in the council, God love him, someone's got to.
All right, so how about this? I'll move that we deny the special exception and that we allow the applicant to refile their case immediately with the condition that the first opportunity for a hearing before this board will be the second meeting in January. And if they file in January, then they hear it in March, but if they filed it tomorrow and it would make them eligible for the second meeting in December or the first meeting in January, we're not going to do it till the second meeting in January. The earliest that we will hear the case is the second meeting in January, but they can refile whenever they choose to refile, but the motion is that we deny the special exception.
If they were to file that fast, how soon before our meeting would they have the public meeting, Joey, or?
The board's rules don't set a specific date before this hearing. It just has to be before the BZA meeting at a geographically close time, sometime, you know.
Yeah, and
Not too far ahead,
There are
not
people that do
too
it
late.
plenty of time. There are people that do it, you know, we've heard the day before, so, you know.
I mean, that's, again, why
Right.
I'm mentioning that.
So
Okay.
is that's a motion. Is there a second? Have a motion, have a second. Is there any other discussion or amendments or thoughts?
I would just as soon have an amendment to require the public meeting to be at least after the first of the year, but before we get together again with a sufficient time, not the day before, like they did before.
That's acceptable to me. Is there any objection? All right. So the motion's on the table. It's been seconded and amended. Is there any other discussion? All in favor of that, say aye and raise your hand. That motion passes. We will see you all in January, or sometime, or not, depending upon whether or not it gets refiled. All right, last case.
You're trying to beat Christina, as I can tell.
Oh, yeah, that's-
Okay, the last case on today's agenda, case 2021-143. Dwayne Cuthbertson is the appellant, Lishy Avenue Partners, LLC, owner of the property at 1233 Lishy Avenue, requesting a variance from the parking access drive aisles in MUNA district to construct multifamily residences. Member Davis has contacted me. She is recusing herself from this case, and as this is the last case of the day, she's departing for the day. So have a good evening, Ms. Davis. Thank you. So the record reflect her departure, and we'll have 5 members participating in this case. Mr. Cuthbertson, before I start my part, let me call, are there any parties here present in opposition to case 2021-143? Okay, we do have folks in opposition. So each side will have 10 minutes to present their testimony to the board. Let me go through the case first, and then I will turn it over to you all. The subject property, as you see here highlighted in red, is in the mixed-use neighborhood alternative district. The request before you is a request to amend the zoning code requirements of 1720.060, which is the driveway width specifications. The zoning code requires that all drive aisles within a parking lot have a minimum width of 24 feet, and the appellant is showing a 20-foot width from the point at which the entrance coming off of Lishy to the point at which you clear Unit 4 in the site plan, which you see here. The rest of this parking lot back in this area does comply with the code. This is looking at the subject property upon our visit out to the site. And then views looking at adjoining properties there in the vicinity. And that is the case record. We have it. I'll leave the site plan up. Sir, if you'll identify yourself and make your presentation. Again, I'll keep the time here at the desk. I'll alert you at 5 minutes, and then again at 3, and then at 1. So
Okay, thank you.
with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dwayne Cuthbertson, 409 Merritt Avenue. I am here on behalf of the owners of 1233 Lishy Avenue, and we are requesting a variance of that minimum drive aisle width. To be clear, and Mr. Hargis pointed this out, we are only asking for that reduction on the portion adjacent to the buildings that you see in the site plan. The remainder of the drive aisle complies or actually exceeds that minimum drive aisle width. So we're asking for a 20-foot drive aisle width right up against the building, so in between Lishy and the parking area. And of course, this request is to accommodate a multifamily development that complies otherwise with the mixed-use neighborhood zoning, mixed-use neighborhood alternative zoning on this property. I think it's important to note that when we were first looking at this property, the initial approach to give us a slightly better building envelope was to reduce the landscape buffers. This is a mixed-use neighborhood zoning. It's uniquely situated between 2 RS5 zoned properties, and the zoning code requires a 10-foot landscape buffer on our property adjacent to those RS5 zoning districts. So we would have landscape buffers on both sides, pinching this building envelope. So our initial thought was, well, maybe we can reduce those landscape buffers a little bit, and that would give us the needed room that we sought. So we had talked to the adjacent neighbors that would be most affected, and after just a little bit of a conversation, it was clear that approach was not going to be supported. So we went back to the drawing board. It's also, I think, also important to note that that site plan contemplated 5 units. So we went back to the drawing board. We reduced the number of units to 4. And we've reestablished 10-foot landscape buffers on both sides. So we have the full landscape buffer on either side, which also comes with screening along the property lines. And so So we, again, reevaluating the site, we thought, well, maybe we could take just a little bit from ourselves effectively in this internal drive aisle and reduce it by 4 feet, and that would give us a proportional usable building depth or width, depending on how you look at the site plan. So we put that back in communication with the neighbors. We didn't get great feedback, but at least we were in communication. We've, again, talked to both, and we're committed, regardless of the outcome of this hearing, to working with them on that landscape buffer, on that screening, because regardless of what happens here, they are going to be impacted. And so, yeah, we want to make that commitment on the record. So we're working with this mixed-use neighborhood zoning, which it's important to note, mixed-use neighborhood alternative zoning allows us to come up to the street. The intent of the zoning district, it really is to get your buildings up to the street, put your parking in the side or the rear, and so that's what we're trying to accomplish here. But it allows up to 4-story buildings, 3-story in that build-to zone, then you step back by 15 feet, and you can go up to 4 stories. We're trying to approach this site with a moderated building scale. So these buildings are 3 stories, but the architecture is really 2.5 stories in height. And this variance request would allow us a depth of 31 feet, which gives us what we think is a reasonable building envelope for those 2.5-story buildings. The homes are all going to be about 1,700-ish square feet. So this is not a moonshot. We're not trying to squeeze blood out of a turnip here. We're trying to do something that we think is reasonable. So again, I want to go back to the specifics of the request. We're only asking to take from our internal drive aisle, reduce it from 24 to 20. The intent of the code has always been to ensure that you have adequate space for two-way access to parking aisles, so as to prevent unnecessary backups, traffic congestion, and I think it's also important to note, while the law has not changed, the interpretation has recently, and I've been involved in numerous projects where at points we were able to use a 20-foot wide drive aisle if there were no parking stalls that backed out onto that parking aisle. So you'll find projects all around Davidson County that have 20-foot drive aisles where there are no parking stalls that back into it. I don't point this out to suggest, well, we should be able to do that still. It's more so to point out that you'll find those projects all around Davidson County, and they work. The 20-foot drive aisle is not causing, to my knowledge, it's not causing issues with traffic congestion or two-way access to parking stalls.
5, Mr. Schmidt.
So I want to point out some of the unique situations related to this property. I mentioned we are sandwiched in between 2 RS5 zoning districts. That's fairly unique. This property is located in a relatively intense commercial node. If you look at the policy, which we don't have that map, but this is a neighborhood center. And so that policy suggests that you should, over time, find more intense uses in this particular node. The node goes up to the SP just north of us, and it incorporates the MUNA zoning across the street. It's really centered on Douglas and Lishi, but we're part of that node. So our zoning is, you can argue, reflective of that policy. But we've got these RS5 zoning districts on either side of us. And you can argue that the RS5 zoning to the south of us will, at some point in the future, get rezoned to where it is consistent with the policy, but it is what it is. So we have these RS5 districts. They trigger those landscape buffers on either side of us that pinch us and our building width down. That's not a common circumstance to get pinched from 2 sides when you're in the middle of a neighborhood node. So that's reducing our building envelope. But one of the more interesting aspects of this property, and you have it in your packet, the alley that you see behind this property is not legally there. There's a pavement back there, and some folks are using that pavement, but the alley is not legally there. There was a right-of-way that was closed back in the 60s that effectively eliminates legal access to that alley. So if the alley were there, we'd redesign this site, push the buildings up to the street, get access to the parking in the rear as the code intends, and we'd go on about our business, but we are not legally allowed to access this site from that alley, even though the asphalt's there, even though other neighbors are using it. We don't have the legal rights, and zoning won't approve our plan with
3 minutes, Mr. Scott.
rear access parking. So again, that's a pretty unique attribute for urban properties. The other minimal aspect to point out, there are overhead lines that are aligned on the southern border of this property that we also have to be mindful of and make clearance for. So there are some benefits to this reduced drive aisle width, right? So the intent of redevelopment is to create a more consistent, neighborhood-oriented, pedestrian-oriented outcome. Well, the driveways always represent pedestrian conflicts, and the wider your driveway is, the more there that conflict exists. And so we're reducing that width, reducing that conflict point. It gives us a little more space for sidewalks. While incremental, it also gives us a little more space for street trees and landscaping as well. There's a little bit more benefit to stormwater. There's a little less impervious surface. So again, I'd wrap it up to say that we've had communications with the neighbors. We'll continue communications with the neighbors. We think the 20-foot drive aisle we're proposing works, and we think it actually benefits the neighbor. It helps us stay at a scale that we think is more beneficial to the neighborhood. And I'll stop there and stand for questions.
Just so I'll understand, and looking at the picture, Joey, can you go to the bingo? Yeah, no, the other one, that one. Okay, if, say in Unit 4, they had to get an ambulance in there and everybody was parked in the back, are they still going to be able to flip around and get out if it's an ambulance? Say there was an emergency, just on the worst case scenario.
Yep. So emergency services actually don't require turnarounds until you're past 150 feet. Okay. So these buildings aren't past 150 feet, so all emergency services assume that they can pull in, but they can also back out.
Back out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So fire engines, all ambulances, they presume that they'll have to back out.
Well, I want to compliment you on at least addressing trees and what have you for me this time without me having to ask the magic questions.
Yes, sir. And keeping the landscape buffers where they are gives us a lot more room for the health of those trees.
Thank you.
I have a question about, you mentioned that the alley doesn't exist legally. Does any of the alley, because it looks like there's development immediately kind of to the south of you guys that's pretty recent, and it has driveways coming off of the alley. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Where does that alley stop? Because, yeah, go ahead.
So, yes, sir. So you can see it on the site plan. Our property line makes a little jog right there. Mm-hmm. That's where the property line goes to the center of what was the alley right-of-way. So it's only at this point, and then our neighbor to the south has a similar right there. So up to that point, the alley legally exists. At that point, it's private property. Our private property, the neighbor Jenna to the south, it's her private property, and then the neighbors to the east have half of what was that alley right-of-way.
Okay. What about the portion, just like the rest of the jog? Does it go back to an alley after that, or is it?
Well, so that alley does not go all the way through to a public street on the north side, so.
But that is actually an alley on both sides. It's an alley, and then just this random thing in the middle is not an alley.
It is. So north of it, there is alley right-of-way.
Okay.
But you can't legally get to that alley right-of-way, even though people are using it every day and they presume the alley's there, they're using it, nobody's complaining. Legally, the right-of-way is interrupted.
So it's pretty safe to say there will be some people complaining if you build over their alley and they don't have access to the back of their houses they've had for the last 60 years.
And that's a fair point. This owner, but the owner to the south, the owner to the west could legally put a fence in the center of that right-of-way. Yes, it would create some serious problems and headaches.
Has there been any discussion with those other owners to reestablish that legal right-of-way for an alley?
No, we've not. We've only had some preliminary conversations with Jenna to the south, and even then over text. So no, we haven't talked to
Okay.
them about reestablishing that alley.
Do you think that that could be a possibility?
It's a possibility insofar as everybody's willing to participate and give their property back up. And it's a crapshoot. Sometimes it's easy, and then sometimes it is impossible.
Okay.
Because it relies on everybody signing over that dedication. I've been in cases where you try to explain it every which way to Sunday to an adjacent owner, the benefits of, and it doesn't matter. They won't sign. And so we're stuck.
Okay.
And we would need every adjacent property owner to sign and dedicate for us to get back to that point.
Right. This seems like a pretty random way that, I mean, it's, I won't give my commentary on how the zoning applies here, to have this one piece of immunity between RS5. But do you know if that was a more recent rezoning, or if that was, and is it the same owners that pursued that rezoning that own it now?
I don't know the answer to that, but I think Mr. Hargis or I can do a little bit of research and figure that out for you pretty quickly.
Yeah, on the screen now before you is the date, the effective date of the rezoning of that parcel to MUNA was October 6th of 2017.
And the answer to your question is no, the current owners were not the owners at the time that was zoned.
Okay.
In 2015.
Yeah. Mr. Newton, one comment on the alley thing. When we first looked at this application, when Mr. Cuthbertson came in and applied for a permit, we actually in our office thought this was a mapping error. We're like that, because when you look at the aerial photograph or look at the pictometry view, there's clearly an alley there. I thought initially in looking at it that our maps were just wrong, but digging into it, there's a council bill that actually closed that little sliver of alley and sort of cut off the northern part of that. I don't know that it was necessarily, may have been related to a previous alley kind of located where my cursor is here that tied into this street.
Yeah, the ordinance that closed that was actually intending to close a street. There was a street that ran from Douglas to Lishi. I forget the name of it, but it wasn't used. And so that ordinance was intended to close that street. But what it did is it closed the right-of-way. It didn't distinguish between the street and the alley. It just closed the right-of-way space. So that alley got caught in that inclusive legalese, if you will. I went up to mapping and argued every which way I could to say it's just the street, not the alley. But
Okay.
I didn't get any traction.
I see. I kind of see what you're saying now. It used to be that they probably aligned the streets at some point in the 60s. They're in some urban renewal thing and connected them, and then they'd rather have a jog in the street, and then the street got, okay, I see what you're saying. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Mr. Cuthbertson, you're definitely not asking for much of 4 feet is not much of a variance, but I always think that the people that drafted the code knew a lot more than I know about this width, and I think the width of an average car, I recall, is around 8 feet. So that puts you 2 cars right next to each other, 16 feet, which gives you 4. So, and I think what you're doing is pretty modest in terms of the size of the buildings. I do have a little concern about that because I think you're going to have cars that are coming really close to each other. But I want to make sure I understand the hardship. And maybe I'm not seeing it because it looks like this piece of property is pretty similar to the pieces of property around it. Are you relying on the fact that there's this alley that's not really an alley, or are you relying on the fact that it's between two pieces of property that are zoned differently than it?
It's both. I think the unique circumstance is both. We can talk about, and Mr. Newton, I don't disagree with you. It's why did just it get rezoned in 2017 and not the whole little neighborhood node? It's a piecemeal approach, and these are some of the unintended consequences that don't really get talked about, that all of a sudden now we are put in between 2 RS5 zone properties that may or may not, should or should not be rezoned similarly. But now we have these 10-foot landscape buffers that are intended to protect us from something that's there today but might not be there 10 years from now. it's not a debate we necessarily need to get into here, but we are pinched. And we think it's unique. In most neighborhood nodes and most commercial centers, you'll find consistent zoning where you don't have, maybe you're pinched from the neighborhood if you're on the perimeter of this node, but in this case, we're pinched from two sides. It squeezes our building envelope. And then you follow that up with, well, that's fine. We can just access from the alley, and we've got our parking. We don't have to worry about a drive aisle. Well, now we can't because we don't have this alley. So it's looking at it from two angles, if you will, that we think we have these circumstances that are pretty unique. And then you follow it up with, well, we're trying to create something that is moderated in scale. So having this building envelope, or the depth, if you will, reducing the drive aisle to 20, keeps us at 2.5 stories, where the zoning would say, well, you can go to 4 stories. 4 stories would really stick out. So this minor relief keeps us at a scale that we think is better for the neighborhood in terms of its presentation and how it fits. But the direct answer to your question is it's a little both.
It's a little, it's zoned differently, and you have this
Alley,
abandoned alley.
yes.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, you will have some time for rebuttal. I don't know how much, but Joey can, Mr. Hargis can let you know.
Mr. Chairman, it's a minute 25.
All right, and then we will hear from the opposition. And of course, Councilman Parker, you don't have a time limit on your.
Okay, thank you. I was going to request that, and I'm not necessarily wanting to weigh in opposition right now. I wanted to discuss the alley situation there. So 2 parcels north of this, I recently worked with an applicant to come up with an SP to do an attached duplex build. And I went back and forth with departmental staff at Public Works to determine if we could have the vehicular access be in the rear of that property. We ended up being fairly confident that we could. However, in the SP, we did provide a condition that if Public Works determines that it wasn't, then you could load up front. And Public Works, whoever reviewed the application, also came to the conclusion that the alley was not continuous access. However, and I have some long email chain that I will read a little bit from as we went back and forth about this alley, if that's all right with y'all. So we asked, said, this was Matthew Wilkinson asked, it appears partially paved, gravelled, and unimproved in the aerial imagery. It looks like there was a small partial abandonment. Asking Public Works staff for the status of it. Status of Alley 301, including the portion of property designated as public right-of-way, improved and accepted for maintenance. This alley was recently researched by the Public Works surveyor, and the below information was what was found. Missing portion was taken off the property maps in '67 when Mile End Avenue was closed by ordinance. Closed portion of the street overlaps Alley 301. All easements were retained. The persons in that ordinance are no longer here. We can't go back to ask if the intention was to close the alley too, or rather only close the street and keep the alley open. However, it doesn't make sense that they would close the alley too, but the council bill does not address that. What we do know is that the alley has remained physically open and that the city has continually maintained it. Therefore, we will claim a prescriptive easement and have it added back to our official map. The portion of right-of-way that is not shown on the property maps would fall under the property mapping division of the planning department. I believe deeds and taxes that are acquired have something to do with why right-of-way is not shown on the property maps, as they actually deal with the parcels, not the right-of-way. And I apologize, some of this is over my head and not stuff that I understand super duper well, so that's why I'm just reading it in whole and hoping that folks here can maybe make a little more sense of it. We said, thanks for looking into this. Can you confirm that Public Works has claimed the prescriptive easement and added it back to the official maps? I don't believe any prescriptive easement has been claimed. The center line only for the alley are part of the official map record of what is maintained by Metro. Property mapping determines parcels and how the right-of-way is shown on the property maps, and they still do not show any right-of-way behind 1231 and 1233. Let me know if you need anything else. And I think that's the last of the, nope, I apologize. So in asking about 1305, the SP to the north, I said, can we have rear access at 1305? Public Works staffer replies, I believe 1305 should be able to have rear access through alley 301. I read back through the emails when this was researched, and the Public Works surveyor did say that Public Works was claiming a prescriptive easement behind 1231, 1233 Lichy Avenue, so I do not believe they would be able to block the access. So it might be a very technical issue. There's another directly to the east of here. There's another SP. It's a manor house SP, and I'm afraid I don't recall if there was rear access prescribed in that SP. And so I don't have anything conclusive to tell you other than I've looked into this, and the initial interpretation is that we could access through that alley. But I don't really know where to go from here. I'm happy to answer any questions or read more of my emails to you.
So the alley access is it up in the air? That's what I'm hearing. Maybe not.
The determination was from Public Works that you could access from the rear at these properties, and that it could not be impeded by anything that would prevent you from accessing at the rear there.
Can we ask our legal counsel and zoning administrator how that determination from Public Works would impact zoning and their ability to access? I mean, and I guess to me, and what I think I'm hearing from you is you would prefer rear access, and the applicant has said that they would prefer to do that if they had that ability, and yet it sounds like, have exhausted what they think is the path to achieve that, and I know they want to be able to do something with their property, and, you know, you've heard comments from folks about and we'll talk with other folks here about the merits and the hardship that's presented, but, you know, I guess the question is, if it's up in the air, if it's an answer to get to quickly, that sounds great, but it sounds like it may be something that could take
Years.
well, so long that it's not fair to the applicant to not give them something.
If they get title insurance, which their bank is going to require them to build, they're going to have a lawsuit to quiet title. Because I don't think any of the title companies are going to insure over that it being that unsure. I mean, I know that part of the equation from what I do. So, Councilman, can you help? You need to work a miracle here somehow.
Mr.
It
Lawless,
makes sense in the back.
Yeah, no, I'll echo Mr. Lawless's opinion. The closure of the road, until there is a suit to quiet title, it's my opinion that those two owners own that land in fee simple. Now, Metro can claim a prescriptive easement, but until that's adjudicated and the judge lays down the order, that alley's closed. That's just one lawyer's opinion. You can ask any of the lawyers in the room and get different answers maybe, but.
Okay.
One contextual question I do have, though, is I haven't reviewed the SP directly to the east of this, and what access was contemplated in that, because again, I do think that we're generally, especially in a -A district, you know, we're feasible to have that access in the rear.
I mean, based on parcel view, it looks like that property there immediately to the southeast has their access from the alley, and that was what kind of sparked my whole questioning on this, is that.
Councilman, your question is this SP here on
Yes,
this
sir.
parcel? I think they're in the same boat. I really do. Until there's a suit to quiet title and Metro reacquires ownership of that alley, I think they're landlocked. I don't think that cars legally could get from here into this site. These two owners could put up a fence and I think, and block access to it. I understand Public Works' position, but I think until they go to court and quiet title on it, I think it's disputed. And as zoning administrator, I'm going to err on the side of the council bill and the ordinance in the map as it's shown. So it's maybe something to direct Public Works to get with Metro Legal on perhaps filing that suit to quiet title.
Okay, yeah, I will follow up with them on that, but, that was all I wanted to comment on at this point. I'm here to listen to the neighbors who showed up on this case. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll hear from the other opposition. And you all do have a 10-minute time limit, other than when we interrupt or ask questions. That doesn't count against your time. And so if you would state your name and address and what your thoughts are.
Yes. Can you hear me okay? Courtney Williams, 1303 Lishi Avenue. I am a neighbor directly on the side of where the buildings are lined in the plan there. And if you flip through the photos, I can go, that's my house. Yes, so that's my house over there on the left. That's my car. I do hope we have alley access because I'm going to have to figure out where to put that thing. So one thing I do want to state, just listening to the applicant, is I have had conversations with them about the plans, and I do look forward to continuing those. I also think when we talk about this plan being modest, let's keep in mind they are 4 units in this plan that they are not tied to at 1,700 square feet. My home is around 1,400. So this can be a little deceiving looking at it like this. The drive also looks similar to the depth of parking spaces. So I think there's a little bit of some dimensions. I'm a graphic designer that might be slightly skewed in this interpretation. I do think the hardship here is a little questionable, but I have jotted down some thoughts, so if you'll permit me, I'll just read them to you. They're a little bit more articulate than me off the cuff. When rezoned, this lot was looked at as a supporting lot, part of the neighboring church property. It's across the street. It has now been segmented off for a different development purpose. With the current multi-use zoning this piece of land already has, it grants generous entitlements to this piece of land, somewhat out of context for its location between a 1-story and a 1.5-story home. Among these entitlements is the ability to have STRs, which contributes to the existing concerns for neighbors for reasons of respectful scale, context, privacy, and quality of life. Without this variance, or this exception for the driveway, this lot can already be developed in a myriad of ways, well beyond its location's context. The requested variance is not in any way due to a hardship, but rather an attempt to maximize and push the limit of an already generous base zoning. Already what is allowed to be built will greatly and negatively impact the homes around this property. I see no reason why this additional request should be granted. Granting this request only allows for more build space and therefore the potential for an undue increase in this development's impact to the surrounding properties. And for these reasons, I am opposed. But yeah, so I do think the original plan that was shown to me did show access to the alley. I'll be very curious to see if they have that moving forward. But I do not look at their landscape barriers or their long walls as hardships. Those are things required by the zoning. They know these things going in with the property. They own the property across the street. It is being looked at as an individual context as though many of these things are surprises. We know that code and maps can be full of surprises when we really get into planning. But I do think the hardship is being painted a little bit excessively here. This is a larger than typical lot, and so with high zoning. So I think there's lots of options that don't require variances that maximize even more. Thank you.
I have a quick question. Since
Yeah.
you're the neighbor that is probably most affected,
Yes, they'll be oriented facing my house, it appears.
well, and then I guess the question is, based on, the applicant has said, if I had, and again, the only thing that they're asking for is the driveway, not, they're not asking for a setback variance or anything like that. And I have to say, when I see it just on the site plan, it's a little jarring because they're so close to the street, and the two above it, or two next to it are not. But again, that's what that zone allows, and so we understand that. But the applicant has said that if they were required to have the 24-foot driveway, going to Lishi, that would probably push the houses up taller, even taller, which again they're allowed to do. In fact, they probably could do that and not even show up here because they just would be building to code. And so my question is the immediate neighbor would, if you were to choose between a 4-story home next to you or a 3.5 instead of a 2.5 and a code compliant driveway, or the driveway is proposed in a shorter home next to you, do you have a preference? Or
I certainly have a preference. It is my experience that assurances for plans that are not tied to SPs or base zoning aren't necessarily honored. So seeing a plan for 2.5 seems like a nice, I'd prefer, yes, lower height, but I have no reason to believe that there's anything tying somebody to that height, even with the reward of this variance for the driveway.
Well, I mean, that is something that this board could have as a condition of the variance is, to limit the number of units to 4 as presented. And because I think that the property, based on the testimony of the applicant, the property is probably eligible for 5 units, and they have lowered that to 4. And we could, find out what the height is of a 2.5-story building. We have 2 architects on the board, and have that as a condition. So I guess the question is, if those were conditions where there was that assurance in any motion, would that be something would that give you more confidence in that? And I'm not trying to talk you into it. I'm just really trying to get what you really want, which to me feels like, and again, I'm not the next door neighbor. It feels like kind of the better of the evils, because you probably didn't think that you were going to have a multifamily home next to you when you bought your house, even, and may not have had a clue of how it was zoned. I couldn't tell you how my neighborhood is zoned, and it's a lot less spotty than this. So I get that, but I'm just really trying to get a sense of what you prefer.
Well, I am aware of the zoning, I'll say that, but I was given some assurances that were not true by a former representative. So, bygones. Moving forward, yes, those would be things I would consider. I don't want to say like, hey, that gets my support, because I'd have to know some of the technical details of like, okay, well, more units sometimes require dumpsters and different things that would be unappealing to have next to my yard for a larger development. The original renderings were for 5, but they were with the assumption that they would have lessened landscape barriers. And those looked to be 3 stories with porches that looked into yards. So it's hard to say. Like, I don't know that I feel completely confident now that this new site plan is very preliminary, but we have less units, but it appears to me that they gain the square footage likely in the units, and instead of having garages, shift it to parking. And that seems to be the reason for not even relying on the alley, is they probably needed the parking. So I don't know. It's a lot of pieces for somebody who's not a professional to consider. But yes, the height scale, those things are important to me for sure, and quality of life, and just living next door to what will be more dense than would be ideal for me.
Right.
But,
Okay.
but yeah, I'd be open to hearing them.
Any questions? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you
Was
so
there
much.
anyone else that wishes to speak?
Sir, you'll have 6 minutes, 50 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Hargis. My name is Gordon Harmon. I'm a resident at 1826 Joy Circle, not too far away from here. I'm also the chairperson of the Highland Heights Neighborhood Association. I'd like to voice my opposition to this variance because I don't see a self-imposed hardship here. There is a concern about alley access, and that is a legitimate argument, but seeing as how they own part of that right-of-way that was closed, and the neighbor to their immediate south owns the other part of it, I don't understand why there hasn't been an easement, an official easement that has been discussed and arranged with the neighbor to the immediate south. There was mention of a prescriptive easement that Public Works uses. It's my understanding that in the past, trash collection and other activities have been done up and down this alley. In fact, there was an argument at one of the Planning Commission meetings that the trash trucks have to back up the alley because there's no place to turn around at the end. And there's also another big concern about why do we have, and I know this is a legal argument, but why do we have just a small section of the alley closed, yet on the rest of the maps, there is still Alley 301 listed. If there was a fence put up, nobody could actually use it, there would be a legal argument. So I don't understand why the applicant hasn't looked at doing an easement with the neighbor to the immediate south of this property since they own part of that anyway. And the properties across the way would be more than willing, I'm sure, to sign an easement if they own part of that right of way too. A couple other quick mentions. This property is 72 feet of street frontage. Getting back to the hardship question, with that much frontage, I don't understand why the location of the buildings have to be as they are oriented. You could still do a 24-foot driveway access, orient parking a bit different, do the buildings a bit different, and still come out with a workable solution without having to have a variance. Again, it all comes to street setbacks, meeting the streetscapes up and down, and how they're set back, the other houses are set back. This was a small sliver, again, that was rezoned as MUNA 4 years ago. And the current owner, I just don't see where there is a hardship that they can, that avoid or restricts them from doing anything else with this property other than what this particular plan shows. And with that, I yield the time to the rest of the opposition.
All right, any questions? All right, thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak? Yeah, Councilman Porter, you obviously can speak anytime and for as long as you choose.
Thank y'all. So I was hoping to revisit just the alley with maybe a little bit more clarity now that I've gone back and reviewed those emails several times instead of just blurting them out to y'all and reading the emails. Could Mr. Hargis, would you be able to go to the parcel viewer where we can look at the Alley 301 and former Mile End intersection? Thank you. Are you able to get the dashed lines? I forget which layer that's associated with. Okay, there they were. Thank you. So the dashed lines that you see running parallel here, that was Mile End Road. And the 1967 Council bill did abandon that right-of-way. The bill does not mention Alley 301, and it's based on reviewing these emails and what I'm seeing and hearing is that this was a mapping error. You wouldn't abandon a perpendicular active right-of-way if it wasn't mentioned in the bill, right? And that's, I haven't reviewed the original 1967 bill, but according to the folks at Public Works who did, there's no mention of Alley 301, and they in fact went as far in the email as to say it would not make sense to have included Alley 301 in that abandonment. So if you see the property the reason this is an unusually sized lot, I think it used to be a regular 50-footer, and then it absorbed a good portion of that mile end. However, there was never any official abandonment of Alley 301 at this point. So I was under the impression ahead of today that they were simply electing to use the front, the Lishi-facing access, and not that they had been told that they could not access from the rear. However, I would strongly prefer that we have some clarification on the alley situation. What I'm concerned about is not having clarification and this emerging neighborhood center developing in a way that cuts off logistical access to the rear of all these properties. I think that would be super unfortunate because as has been noted, this is an emerging neighborhood center. And if it's going to accommodate, this growth, this density, I think we're really going to want to keep that infrastructure in place. And I think that closing off an alley would be a very unfortunate step in the wrong direction here.
Do you have a question? Yeah.
Well, I guess the question is, and maybe this is for our legal counsel and the zoning administrator to say, given what you've heard, I know that the interpretation has been that the alley's closed, and then there seems to be some argument. Outside of a court case, how do you get it settled? And is it really just the two property owners, one of whom is the current property owner, that are impacted?
It could be the four. There's four corners.
On each side, so
Yeah.
two on each side?
Yeah. And my question for Mr. Hargis also would be, what legal document creates that alley? And if it was that, that's beyond my pay grade, so.
I guess if is this something that we could ask Metro Legal to take a look at and see if there's, if all the information's there and, over a reasonably short period of time that it would be amenable to both it sounds like both applicants and the opposition would prefer to have an alley access, and so it feels like it's worth taking a close look, especially if there's some question. Now, it may be a pretty quick read where you come back and say, well, we're back in the same situation we were in, but if it's something that could have a case for clarity to say, no, this really was a mistake, and, or even get involved somehow in the with the property owners if there is an issue. To me, it would be a better solution for the neighborhood and probably for the appellant, as long as it's not a multi-year process. I think that's where the.
And I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, but I haven't been involved with some of these. It will probably, it could likely be a multi-year process.
Well,
Talking about settling land rights, there's just no quick way to do it. I agree with you. I think that is a better solution, but I don't think it's going to happen quickly.
So the southern portion of Alley 301 was platted April 12th, PL Book 421, page 12. Alley was extended northward in September 1936, PL BK 843, page 107. So I believe those are the documents that said, hey, this alley exists at this point. And the closed portion of the street that was affected by the 1967 ordinance overlaps Alley 301, as we know, and it says all easements were retained. It's again, I think some of the folks on this board know an awful lot more about this stuff than I do, but that seems to me like it never did abandon 301.
Yeah, that
is what. Let me ask our legal counsel. What would be the
And so
approach?
for clarity, the question is, is this alley owned by the city or the personal landowners?
Well, and I guess is it really, is it a case where, based on use, based on Metro Legal's interpretation of the bills in question, the one that created the alley, and then also the one that gave up the road, the connector road that made this lot larger and the other, basically 2 lots at least larger. If there's any conflict that would have caused that little section to be, appeared to be abandoned on the maps, and I guess if Metro Legal came back and said, well, there's nothing here that this was just a mapping error, as the councilman has suggested, then that it may not end up as a court case unless it's, contested by the homeowners, and then maybe it's look, we're trying to clarify this, and, here's our take on it. It's been an alley in use ever since it was created, and even when the road was abandoned, it still was used as an alley. It's still used as an alley today. If there's a path, again, for that to come to a resolution faster than homeowners, suing other homeowners and taking it all to court to establish it, I think that's what we're trying to get to. And it sounds like, just on the quick read, is that it may be worth a review. I mean, based on what you've...
My one way that I might ask it is there anything besides the parcel viewer mapping software that indicates that this alley's closed?
Yeah.
Yes, and that's what I was looking through here in the legal descriptions for each of these 4 lots. Like this one, it says Lot 1 of Joe Brown Estates and part of closed street. But to your point, Councilman, I think what I understand you're saying, imagine a 4-way stop, and they meant to close these 2 T's of the 4-way stop and keep this open. But that's definitely not how it got mapped. But yeah, all 4 of these parcels, as you see in the legal description, discuss part of abandoned street.
Sure, but I mean, where's the description, and because they all include a little piece of the former Mile High or Mile End Road, right? And then was there a map?
Does the description for the alley go from the center line of the road to the next center line, or does it go from the edge of the road to the edge of the road? I see some overlap, and I'm trying to get to the same place. And this is I'm an architect, I'm not a lawyer, so this is way over my head.
So that looks to be prior to the 1936 northern extension of...
Yes, yeah, this is the first version. You had a booking page.
Yes, sir.
What was you read off 2, what's the first one?
So from 1912, the southern portion is book 421, page 12.
Yeah. And this is the 107,
So one more, while Joey's looking at that, one more question for our legal counsel is what would be a reasonable expectation for the board if we were to say, or ask you or your office to research this based on, I think, the information that the councilman has and the zoning administrator's already looked at, what would be a reasonable time frame to say, hey, we've taken a look at it and here's what we think?
I would ask for a month initially, maybe a month, 4 weeks. Yeah.
And the only, and the main
that's
reason is
based on my schedule.
and we can ask the applicant about, and they may have already done some of this research too, but it seems like this is the most desirable outcome for both parties, and it may or may not be worth it to them. I can't speak for them to say, well, yeah, if we could have an answer one way or the other in a month, but knowing that if the answer was no, this is not possible, then we would have to address the 20-foot or the 4-foot setback request or 4-foot reduction in the driveway request at that point.
Mr. Chairman, one note for you. I mean, we can obtain the ordinance from the clerk's office that closed this street. And in that ordinance should be an exhibit showing precisely the area with either a survey meets and bounds legal description that describes the area to be closed, or some sort of pictorial, but I don't see the council bill attached to either of these 4 pages.
That was in our packet. Yeah, it's in our packet. I've got it right here.
It's a lawsuit. That's all this is. Unless they can do it by agreement. No, well, they're not going to, see, the problem is they're not going to be able to get title insurance to make their lender happy.
All right, so are there any other,
I wouldn't let my client close on it, my bank client, so I mean, it's.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, looking at the ordinance 67-176, the caption of the bill says, vacating and abandoning a portion of Mile End Avenue from Lishee to North First Street. And it says, it does talk about that easements are retained herein, that the official street and alley map of Metropolitan Davidson counties is hereby amended as follows: that portion of Mile End Avenue extending easterly from Lishee Avenue to North Fifth Street is hereby closed, vacated, and abandoned. Plat and legal description attached here too.
Mr. Hargis, I guess my question is if the alley says if it goes from Douglas to whatever it went to north of there, like, what constitutes the crosshairs, or what trumps the other? That's my question for you, for our council.
I think, you know, from standpoint of,
I mean, is that the kind of question that you would research over, you know, the month that, and that is really the question, is if, you know, you have, I guess, and again, a law that says this exists, a law that says, I mean, this is a road, and then you have a council bill that says, hey, we're taking this off. Does this still exist, or does the intersection go away too? And I guess I think that's what I would like to know, because logic says, and again, logic isn't always how the law's written, right? Logic says the alley should still be there. The way it's behaved is the alley should still be here. The way Public Works uses it, it should, the way it behaves in terms of the city, the way it behaves in terms of the people living at it. And to me, it just feels like it's worth a little bit of time to explore it further. And Joey, I'm not assuming that you all haven't. I'm just, it's not clear to me. So, and I think you all probably already gone through at least enough of that to make your judgment. But
you know, you've got another side that you're not, I think, taking into account, and that is, unless Mr. Colson's folks are independently wealthy and are going to write a check and build this out of their pocket, they're going to have construction lending. And to have construction lending, a financial institution is going to require title insurance or affirmative insurance over any potential loss or what have you. Good luck. I mean, I've done bank financing, transactional stuff for 40 some odd years. It ain't going to happen unless they get something in writing from Metro Legal and they get agreement somewhere else, or unless you've got super rich clients that can pay for it out of their pocket, and that's just not, that just doesn't work. I mean, I'm not trying to, you know, if they can wait a month or two for Metro Legal to tell them it's still there, I'm all for it. If they can work a deal around there, but candidly, what we may want to do, what we may wish we could do, may not work. I mean, because you've got other people that aren't here. I haven't got, you know, Mr. Icon flowing in here and saying, I'm going to lend the money. I'm just being, and Ross, if I'm wrong, correct me. Or Joey, if you hear me saying anything, correct me. I know you will, but.
I think you get title insurance. I'm not sure a letter from Metro would do it. As Mr. Morris said earlier, I think you have to have a court declaration that here's what's going on, because the title insurance company can look at it as someone can come in and challenge the letter from Metro.
I think it's been legal case.
And
So,
they could end up in court.
let's
I like the
hear.
idea.
Yeah.
Sure.
let's hear, I think, is there any other time for opposition? I think opposition was done and then the councilman came back. So did you have anything else to say?
I don't, but I think it's clear that I would strongly prefer to have some clarity on this right-of-way situation for proceeding here.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
All right, and so we're here, I think, a minute and a half for Mr. Cuthbertson. I'm sure there'll be questions. Well, I thought that they didn't want to speak and the councilman came back, and so I thought they'd given up their time. Okay. Well, it's out of order, but we'll allow it. So
I appreciate that. So in discussing this abandoned right-of-way, we don't know if it is a right-of-way or not. Would it not be, and I'm just posing this as a rhetorical question for discussion. That doesn't make sense. But anyway, internal discussion maybe. We have 4 owners of this disputed property, one being the applicant, 2 being other SPs that would take extreme advantage of having that alley, and then 1 party that we don't know if she's been talked to at all. Would it not solve this problem if there was an easement agreed to by those 4 property owners to actually use this as an alley? I would just wonder if that would not be a much more inexpensive and more direct route to make that work. That's all.
Great, thank you. All right, Mr. Cuthbertson.
Okay, so I'm not sure what to respond to first in my minute and a half, but I agree with Councilman Parker. We went around this merry-go-round quite a few times with mapping. David Klein up in mapping had a conversation with somebody at legal. I said the same thing. Doesn't make sense. They closed the street, not the alley. But his argument was, well, we've already hashed this out. They closed the right-of-way. So I'd love some clarity, but I jumped up and down and said, doesn't make sense. It's stupid. They closed the street, and got told every which way they closed the right-of-way.
So would you be opposed to a 1-month deferral to have Metro Legal take I mean, I know that I know everybody's making calls. I know everybody's looking at it, but I guess with more directive from the board to say, please, really dig into this as deeply as you can to get a definitive answer. And then I guess that's question 1. Would that be acceptable? And the question 2 is, to the Neighborhood Association president's comment about the easement with the 4, it sounds like 3 of you are pretty heavily vested in wanting to have this. And the 3rd one, I guess, has there been any contact with that homeowner?
So I've talked to Courtney on the north, but she's not involved in the alley. It certainly concerns her. Jenna to the south, we've texted back and forth. I've sent her some emails explaining our requests. We didn't talk about the alley. We were talking just specifically about what we're asking.
But the alley would the alley would essentially solve your problem.
It could. So here, my experience, and Mr. Wallace, I appreciate what you said, because when banks get involved, it just gets super complicated. But there's more than 4. So we've got 4 property owners on that corner. That little 4-unit townhouse development, they're owned by 4 different people. So we've actually got 7 people that we have to sign on to this right-of-way dedication. The more people you have involved, the longer it takes, if you even get there. I would love it if Metro Legal came back and said, mapping's wrong, the attorney that mapping talked to was wrong, and they just closed the street. They didn't just close the right-of-way that also applies to this alley. If we have to defer it, I think this conversation's been had already up at Metro, and I appreciate that you've not probably been involved in it, so you're starting from scratch, and there's certainly some time needed for that learning curve, but if we have to defer it, I'd really like a 1-meeting deferral, because I think that conversation's been had already up in the halls of Metro, and I was told pretty definitively what it is, and I was told there is no way of arguing around it. I did go to Mr. Hargis. He sent me up to mapping. it was made absolutely clear to me that right-of-way is not there. And again, I found that annoying because they closed the street, not the alley. So if we have to go down the deferral, I'd like it just to be a one-meeting deferral in hopes that we can resolve it in that timeline. And if we can't, then of course, if we need more time, then we'll go that way. But I did in my, rebuttal, I also wanted to remind you all that we're dealing with what we have. And again, we've been told that we don't have the alley. So we're dealing with what we have. We're asking you all for a variance to take from ourselves on that drive aisle. It is to get a moderated scale. The homes are 1,700 square feet. This zoning would allow us to build 2,900 square foot homes. It gives us almost 12,000 square feet of FAR. We're asking for only 1,700 per unit for the four homes. So again, we're not trying to push the needle. We can debate it, but we are trying to be sensitive to the context of the neighborhood. The request we're asking you for is pretty minimal. We would commit to, because we understand the importance of that alley. We're not trying to cut anybody off. We'd be willing to submit to a condition that says, if we give this to you, you have to work with these property owners and reestablish that alley. Because I get it. It's important to folks to the north side and to that SP.
How high is the 2.5-story proposal that you have?
And that's something I wanted to clarify. So it is 3 stories, but the ridge line of the roof starts right above the elevation that I have now, which they're still working on. It's not final. But the ridge line starts right above that 3rd-story window. So when you look at it, I've got it on my phone. I'm happy to share it with you, if you'd like. When I say 2.5 stories, and the terminology when I worked in planning back in the day, that meant you're at 2 full stories, and then at some point in that 3rd story, your roof line starts to peel back. That was always a point of debate. The architects can, I think, attest to that. So I've got an elevation that's, I'm happy to submit it to Mr. Hargis.
What was the height on that, though? Instead of, you said 3 versus 4, what is the height?
So the eave height starts at 29.
No, the maximum height.
The MUNA zoning district allows you 3.
No, I'm talking about what you're proposing, because you said, what the trade-off is, the whole argument of the hardship is, I'm going to make the driveway shorter so that the houses can be wider and they'll be shorter.
Yes.
And so if I don't put a condition on the height as to, again, you've been before this board a whole lot of times. I've not once have anybody come back and said, y'all didn't do what you said you were going to do. So I don't have any doubt that if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. But you haven't built next to these neighbors before, and so they would like to know, well, you know, if you say it's going to be however many feet, that's the 2.5 stories that you described. How tall is it? Even though, and again, just throwing numbers out of the air, if you legally could go to 45, but this is really going to be 35, then, you know, at the tallest point, then I think it's fair enough to say, as a condition, let's put that height in there.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You're saying,
Yes.
it's basically it's just putting in as a condition what you have articulated.
So the elevation that I have today, the eave height's at 29.9.
Okay.
I don't have a measurement to the ridge, but that's where the pitch starts of the roof.
Okay.
And so it's 3 full floors, but the ridge starts right above the window line.
Okay. Okay. Well, we can talk about that.
I'm getting a definitional, because like my fellow said, he doesn't practice law. Well, I don't do what he does, so he's explaining it to me.
And, okay. Any other questions? You guys have any other? Anything else?
No, sir.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. We will close the public hearing.
This is just fraught for lawyers to make money.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. The frustration is that is when I hear both sides saying they want an option that's not on the table, then, well, you have one side saying, hey, I think it's worth, some additional conversation, and the one who's really vested in, I mean, the property owner is the one that really wants to enter from the back, and I know that they've, they certainly think they've exhausted all the conversations, and they may very well have, but it just leaves me wanting to have a time to really hear from folks that have.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
It's a simple solution, but you've got to involve a lot of people. And anytime you start dealing with a lot of people, it complicates the matter. I fully understand the next door neighbor. I'd hate to have people staring down at me if I'm in the back cooking on my grill. So, and then you've got an unknown because you got a lender out.
All right. So there's two options on the table. Two options for us that I see. One is to act on the application today. The other is to defer it for one or two meetings for additional research from Metro. Is there a preference from this board of which they would prefer to do today?
I would have a hard time making a determination on this without exhausting the options to see if we could do what everybody wants to do. So I would have a hard time doing that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know how the rest of the board feels. I would be for a deferral because I think it's a long shot that anything is going to get worked out. I think Mr. Cuthbertson is right. And trying to get the neighbors to agree to an easement in theory is a good idea, but then you start considering, well, how are you dividing up the maintenance and who's paying for the survey, and it gets complicated. I don't think there's a hardship here, and I think what Mr. Cuthbertson is asking for it is modest, but it's a 20% reduction. I just don't see a hardship, and I do think that looking at the way it's set up, I think it not only is going to make it narrow right in front of those units, but I think it's going to affect the turning radius. When you have two cars trying to get out on the street, I've had that experience sometimes trying to get into Starbucks in really narrow places where you can't. And so I think, it is 20%. I consider a modest request. He always does a good job with what he does, and I appreciate that. He's always very straightforward with us, but I just don't see the hardship. So I think for those reasons, I would be, it may be, that's how, if we had to vote today, I would vote that I don't see a hardship and I would not approve it. So for those reasons, it might be the best option for everybody, including the neighbors, to defer it.
Do you have any thoughts, or?
I'm in alignment with the rest of the board members. Yeah. That's it.
Okay. Well, I'll move that we defer this.
Now, remember, you got Thanksgiving in a couple of weeks, so with all due respect.
Well, we're going to meet before Thanksgiving. The only thing we're deferring for is for.
Sent for a report from Metro Legal.
Yeah, and I think that to me the other piece is and I know I appreciate the argument or the opinion about the lack of hardship, but I think if there were to be a hardship, then I think that it would have to come with conditions that were verbalized today, which are lowering the height of the building at its peak. And I think we just would need to put in those, have a rendering or something that would just say, hey, this is what we're going to build, and it's a better solution. And to me, the only case for the hardship is it's just it is odd to have residences, to have the sandwich zoning, but whether or not that's compelling enough to warrant a more slender driveway, I don't know.
So are you saying you want to have some type of visual representation
No, I'm
of
just,
elevations?
I would say it would give the applicant time to just say, hey, this is, here's what I said I was going to build. Here are the, kind of the dimensions that would, limit me. If, like I said, again, if I could build this high, I'm going to lower it to this high in order to get that 4 feet because I'd rather have shorter than taller. I'd like some clarification from that, and I think that, that 2 weeks gives them that opportunity. So, I mean, I'll move we defer it 2 weeks, see where we are, and hopefully can get to some decision that has at least full information.
I'll second that.
Motion second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. That motion passes. We will see everybody again. And with that, we're done.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.